Oh no, you didn't. Is that how I'm gonna start all these videos? I think it might be. Anyway, so we're gonna take a little bit of a retrospective look. Maybe a little bit of a review, whatever you want to call it. I don't care. At Mercenaries for the PS2. Now, I'm gonna tell you right now, I'm a little biased because this was my shit. But Mercenaries was the type of game that I expected to, revisit and realize it wasn't as good as I remembered it. I thought nostalgia had clouded my view because that was a game that I did play for the PS2. Now, until recently, my PS2 went very, it was neglected. I kind of ignored its existence, kind of like a middle child, and it just never got used. And it was unfortunate, but I've changed that now, and I've been playing a lot of PS2. But that's not the point. But the moment I put that disc back in the PS2 and that home screen featuring a soundtrack like it is of just dramatic, dynamic, lush, swelling horns, and a grim imagery of a statue of a dictator, I knew I had remembered this game exactly how it was. Fucking awesome. Everything about this game resonated with me. And what I wanted from a third-person shooter. Now, that might not be the same for everybody, but for me, this is what I wanted. But first, let's talk about the faction system, okay? At the time for me, when I was experiencing this game, shit was crazy, okay? It flows well, and the choices you make, and who you side with, it feels important. There are some benefits and consequences for who you side with because each, faction has their own specialized equipment that you can access depending on who you side with, who you have a positive relations with. But if you have positive relations with one faction, you're probably not going to have positive relations with another because some of them are in conflict and it's very hard to balance the two. However, there was a system that you could pay to be on good terms with the people again, but that would cost you a lot of money. So, that does seem like kind of a way out, but at the same time, it wasn't that much of a hindrance to the gameplay and experience. But they have their own fine selection of tanks, armored vehicles, cars, trucks, and badass, just mobile weaponry. You can order these vehicles along with airstrikes and supply drops by using the comm system they had. It's kind of like a black market type deal, and they just delivered right to you via helicopter, but they cost you money, so it's not like a complete overpowered piece of shit. It's just fucking rad. I love that fucking shit that you would just be like, runner, I need some, and then you get it in. It's fucking dumb. Okay, sorry, I'm hyped about this shit because I love this game. About those airstrikes I was talking about, God, they function well, and boy are they satisfying. You just go ring ring, pow, boom, bah, burning alive, burn. They feel nice. They're satisfying. It's pleasing. The game takes, place in Korea, and its somewhat dark atmosphere really adds to it, I believe. I think what makes this game great is the attention to detail when it comes to game mechanics. For example, if you acquire a vehicle that belongs to a faction you are enemies with, you will temporarily become disguised as part of that faction, so that if you pass another enemy vehicle driving down the road, you won't be immediately attacked, where otherwise you will be immediately attacked and chased. Another detail is that you can call on ally soldiers to follow you inside of your vehicle, or just follow you in general. And I liked that. Kind of gave this false sense of camaraderie. You know what I'm talking about. The vehicular combat is just plain fun, with the light mobile vehicles featuring machine guns mounted on the back. Not all of them, but most of them. When you aren't disguised in an enemy vehicle, we just talked about this, spotted by enemy patrols, they will attempt to chase you down and engage you in combat. Some other features include a penalty system. If you kill a civilian, there are consequences that take the form monetarily. You will lose money. So it's not like Grand Theft Auto, you can do whatever the fuck you want. If you kill an allied soldier, you will lose favor with that faction. Also, you may stumble across caches of money or airstrikes that you can have helicopters pick up for you. You throw some smoke, it looks kind of cool. And they add to your inventory and you can access them without having to pay for them. Again, not a huge feature, but one that adds to the game, even if it's ever so slightly. One function I really enjoyed was the extraction system. There are 52 North Korean leaders that have bounties on their heads. They are represented by a deck of cards. So you can either catch the leader, subdue him, and extract him alive for the full bounty, or you can kill him but only collect half of the bounty. And then you have to verify him via picture. Again, another nice detail. One of my complaints, though, not major, would have to be that the ground combat shooting system, just shooting-wise, it just wasn't anything special. It's not bad, but it's nothing to write home about. It just functions, you know? In a game that detail was really, like, sticking out to me, it doesn't take away from the game experience. It just seems that the shooting was average, and, you know, I think they could have done a little bit of a better job with that. It just does nothing to improve upon it, I guess. It might be a kind of a picky complaint, but it's not something that really affected me too much when I was playing the game. On the topic of ground shooting, there's no blood or gore, the lack of which initially disappointed me, but that might have been a conscious choice that was made to retain a T rating, to make the game more accessible to, you know, I guess minors. And I'm sure, you know, you could always get that past your parents. Yeah, y'all knew the tricks, you know. You were cool with that one GameStop employee, and he was like, "Oh yeah, I got you, fam." But there you go. Besides the explosions, more than make up for that. The lack of blood is just made up for the fantastic explosions. At least for the time. I mean, it was great. See, you know, just look at the tanks and airstrikes. The game's title promises a mercenary experience, and it really delivers. Profit and money is a major but not integral part of the game. More money equals more equipment, more equipment equals more boom boom, and more boom boom equals more fun. There's a bit of humor worked into the game as well, and again, the setting is perfect for this type of game. Korea realistically has been divided for decades, so it doesn't feel like a total stretch of the imagination story-wise. Like any open world shooter, expect there to be a bit of driving. Now let's talk about the sequel. I got it right here. I got the sequel right here. It's for the Xbox 360. I don't remember if it was made for the I don't care if it was made for the PS3 or not. Again, it retained a T rating. It's called Mercenaries World in Frames. Just kill me. Mercenaries 2, World in Flames. This game disappointed on many levels, and that's what we're going to talk about here. While the original Mercenaries felt like it was made by people who cared about it, people heavily invested in creating an experience unique for the time, the attention to detail shows that. As without that detail, I could easily see this have been nothing worth noting. The sequel, in contrast, felt more plain, almost like it was worked on by a bunch of bros, if that makes any sense. The dark atmosphere brought with the uncertain future of an authoritarian North Korea is replaced with sunny South America. Not a deal breaker, but a subtle sign of what is to come. The story centers around an oil company, and can you guess who's considered the rich, greedy, evil faction? That part of the story almost seems kind of shoehorned in. The combat system, shooting-wise, didn't get better. In fact, it might have even gotten worse, if I remember correctly. I often found myself getting much more frustrated at a much more frequent rate when it came to the sequel. The story isn't as good. The new characters on your team are just kind of interchangeable, though I fucked with the helicopter pilot. I did like the helicopter pilot. He was dope. The driving seemed a little off as well. I'm sure there are more in-depth reasons why it's inferior, but I'm not going to go into those all, you know. I'll leave that to somebody else to, you know, write a thesis on that. As for the original game, I highly recommend it. Probably one of the top 15 PS2 games ever made, and I really believe that. I want to say that it's a must-have, but it might not be what everybody wants out of the PS2, and it might not be everybody's cup of tea. As for the sequel, I couldn't highly recommend it, or even really recommend it by itself. If you play the first and find yourself craving more, sure, pick up the sequel. You will get something out of it at that point, because it's more Mercenaries content, and you'll appreciate at least that. But picking up the sequel without having played the first, don't do that to yourself. If you want to play the sequel so bad, go play the first one first, because you just shouldn't do that to yourself. If you're not willing to buy a PS2 and play the original first, then just skip the series entirely, and there's no shame in doing that if you don't have the time. But if you have the time, I really highly recommend this game. It's wonderful. It's a great experience. It's intriguing. I love it, and it's satisfying. It feels satisfying. Blowing up buildings, satisfying. airstrikes, satisfying. Again, wish the shooting system was a little better, but you take what you can get, and it's a great game. Highly recommend. Is it as, is it a must-have? I want to say yes, but again, it might not be everybody's cup of tea. So that's it for this review. I will see you guys next time. Peace.